Jones Dairy Farm is a seventh-generation family-owned and operated company located in Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin. For more than 135 years, Jones has been using real, natural ingredients, original recipes, and time-honored traditions to create distinctive and timeless products. Jones is known for producing premium, all-natural breakfast sausage, naturally smoked hams and Canadian bacon, all-natural meatballs, and dry-aged bacon. All certified gluten-free. The Alliance Française of Milwaukee is now enrolling for their winter session, which runs January 5th through March 23rd, 2025. Register now at afmilwaukee.org. Most of their classes are available on Zoom for folks who can't make it to in-person classes in Milwaukee, including group classes for adults and private lessons tailor-made to your needs and goals. Special offer for Total Beginners French 101 is only $275. Register before December 29th to also take advantage of their early bird discount of $30 adult group classes. A biento! This is CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Today, will Amtrak ever run through Madison? Where will the station be? Joining me today to help me dream of a future with train travel is City of Madison Transportation Director Christoph Spieler. Christoph, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Enjoying watching the snowfall.
We're watching the snowfall, we're dreaming of the holidays, and we're going to get into something everyone loves to talk about in the city, which is transportation and Amtrak. But before we do, I've got to share, we've got big news here on CityCast Madison. We're officially kicking off our last membership campaign of the year, and we're declaring 2026 the year of local. We want to help people get more deeply engaged with where they live as a way to build real connection in an increasingly disconnected world. There are so many people in Madison who want to laugh together, disagree together, root for this place together, and show up for their neighbors together. If you believe in a more connected, curious, compassionate city, becoming a CityCast Madison neighbor is a meaningful way to help build that. Membership helps sustain the show and helps listeners plug into the local conversation in a deeper, more intentional way. Neighbors unlock perks that help you get more from your city, from experiencing our city together through member events to shining a light and spreading some love through neighborhood shoutouts. Our neighbors help bring out the best in Madison. If you've been waiting, now's the time to join. Head to membership.citycast.fm to learn more. It's $10 a month or $100 a year to support the work we do and help Madison shine. Plus, special to this winter campaign, if you sign up today, you'll get a free CityCast Madison beanie. Yes, let CityCast Madison warm your head with fresh ideas and a beanie. And after all this snow, as Christoph and I just mentioned, now's the perfect time to get your CityCast Madison beanie. So one more time, head to membership.citycast.fm to learn more. All right, Christoph, appreciate you. Thank you for letting me make that plug for our very important membership campaign. And now we're going to talk about trains. Christoph, let's start with the news, right? Last month, y'all in the City Transportation Division came out with the location of a potential Amtrak station. That is, should the passenger train ever stop in Madison. Crossing my fingers. I know y'all are trying to make it happen. Your team recommended the stop be placed near Lake Monona along John Nolan Drive between Henry and Blair Streets. How did that spot come out as a top choice?
Well, what you have to think about with trains is you have a train full of people arriving in Madison, and they're all trying to get to their final destinations. The great thing about a stop downtown with a front entrance straight to Wilson Street is a lot of those people arriving on that train will be able to walk directly to their final destination. If they're trying to get to the state capitol, they're trying to get to the convention center, they're there already. And then on top of that, you have a lot of bus service that's already right there. So you can walk to the BRT. You've got local buses like the C stopping right in front of that site. So you would be able to get on a bus straight to the university, straight to a lot of other parts of Madison. And then we also have really great bike connections. So if you want to get on a bike, rent yourself a B-cycle, you can get there. And then on top of all of that, We have a lot of roadway connectivity getting you to that site from all parts of Madison, and we have a lot of parking already there. So just in terms of access, it's a great site because it gives people so many choices and spreads out the access across so many modes. And then plus on top of that, it's just the right arrival experience. You're not somewhere near somewhere. You are right in the center of things. And what we've seen in other cities is that really drives ridership.
Yeah, it is a pretty way when you think like, how do I want to come into Madison? People often cite that area. And also it's going to be building off of like infrastructure that's already there, right? There are already train tracks. This has already been a thing.
Yeah, no, all of the rail lines in Madison actually converge on the isthmus and converge into that spot right there. And we've looked at it. There's enough room to add that station platform and add the vertical circulation. And we've got quite a few different options for where the actual station facilities could be. It feels like a site that has a lot of feasible ways to go about it. And like you said, this would not require building any new rail lines. It would be reusing lines that already exist.
I remember last January speaking with transportation planner Liz Callan, who we love on the show, and her talking about the facility and me not really even recognizing that would be a cool thing where you could have like shops and lots of little Madison related vendors and little cute things for people to arrive into our city. I hadn't even thought about that. I'm like, let's just get the train, but there's also going to be a train station that could have some charm.
And it's funny, as I think people sort of think about train stations wrong in both ways. In one way, I think people overestimate the amount of actual station you need. Most people will not be showing up that far before the train leaves. These are not long distance trips. These are people going to Milwaukee or Chicago or the Twin Cities maybe. So you actually don't need a huge amount of waiting space. And again, when people are arriving, their goal is to leave the station, go to wherever they're going. But also the station is a place that concentrates activity. And so it is a natural spur for other kinds of things like retail because it creates an awful lot of foot traffic right past those things. So I think there's a real placemaking potential with the station. And if you're putting in a place that already has a lot of activity, the more the better.
Truly. And since we're time travelers here in this conversation, and this would come, like well into the future, how does this planned or potential location square with the Lake Monona redesign that's been chosen? Because it's kind of like right over there.
Yeah. No, I think the two are very compatible. I think they could work together to help us really reimagine this lakefront. The space where the tracks are and the space where the lakeway is, they're sort of on different sides of John Nolan Drive. So there's no direct conflict for space here. But the kind of connectivity that the Lakeway project has been thinking about sort of opening up the lakefront to the city, I think works really well with passenger rail plans in the same area. And obviously, that is part of what people are arriving towards too. Like the more we create the lakefront as a thriving, active place that people love to hang out at, the more we're improving that arrival experience for the train as well.
Well, I saw there was a second location under consideration near the forthcoming public market. And of course, folks remember our conversation from last year. The city had narrowed it down to 8 places. So now we're kind of talking about 2, right? So what is this second location idea and why pick that spot? And why is it second to the John Nolan Drive area we were talking about?
Yeah, so that second location is off of Johnson Street, just north of the Yahara. There are a series of vacant properties around there, as well as 2 train yards. And as you said, that's sort of across the street from the new market. It's a location which logistically works well in terms of having lines running into it. And it also has a considerable amount of space, which would allow for multiple platforms, multiple tracks, would allow for space for trains to lay over there, to spend the night there, for example. Those are positives, and there's definitely a good chance to work with new transit-oriented development as you build it there. So it's a feasible site. It's definitely a site which has some of those placemaking opportunities. The downside of it is it's simply further away from where most people are going. It's further away from Capitol Square. It's further away from the university. And the transit access is also not as strong. You are within walking distance from BRT, but it's a longer walk. And there's fewer local bus routes around there. So even though there's a bus route going past the front, the service is not as frequent as the service on the bus routes in downtown. And because it's further away, more people would need to transfer to transit in order to get to their final destination. There's not a lot of destinations within walking distance there. So that's what makes it our second site. But we thought it was important, especially since the city doesn't lead the process of initiating new train service. That's really Amtrak in the state. And they have their own sets of logistical requirements. And obviously, as you move into design something, sometimes as you get more into details, you may run into issues. So we thought it was good to provide two quite different options. So there is a backup, and there's two sites that can be further explored.
That's always prudent, right? Have a backup. Yeah. And as you've been mentioning, BRT, the Bus Rapid Transit, is really central to the choices that are being made here. And these are more or less central. The number one pick, very centrally located right downtown. The one by the Madison Public Market potential, also fairly centrally located. How are y'all thinking about accessibility for those on Madison's south side and north side, and how BRT will play into that?
Yeah, no, I think it's really important to realize that a lot of the people using Amtrak in Madison would not be driving. First of all, I think one of the strongest audience are Madison residents who want to use the train are those people who do not have cars, including a lot of the students. And I think this could be really transformative for them. They're not going to be driving to the station. They may be walking, they may be biking, and a lot of them will be taking transit. And likewise, if people are taking the train to Madison, they're not going to be renting a car when they get here. They're going to want to be able to get to their destination. And obviously, they can call a rideshare, they can get a cab, but I think a lot of them will also want to get on transit. So transit connectivity, I think, is really important to making this work. And what's great about all of these central locations, great about being on the Isthmus, is there are bus routes from every part of Madison connecting into here. And so some people may need to transfer from one bus to another, other will be directly on a bus route. But it's not just the BRT. It's also all of those local bus routes that connect into these locations. So that's what we really like here, is it puts you in the heart of our transportation system where you can make all these connections to all of Madison. And even if you are driving, even if you're calling yourself a rideshare, these are central locations that have good street connectivity in every direction. And we think that's a really big advantage. Whereas if you were to pick a less central location, if you were to pick a location on the north side somewhere, that would be convenient to people on the north side, but it would be far less convenient to people on the south side. And so by being central is really where we get closest to the most people. And pretty much wherever you are in Madison, you already have connections that get you there. Like if you know how to get to the farmer's market, you know how to get to the Amtrak.
Jones Dairy Farm was founded on a family recipe for pork sausage, made with just pork, salt, and spices. Who knew that 135 years later, they'd still be using the same recipe today? Their iconic roll sausage is a perfect protein to include in your weekly rotation. Crumble it up for easy breakfast prep, or layer it in a lasagna or pasta. Or swap it with any other ground meat for a flavorful and already seasoned option. Jones Dairy Farm, making mealtimes better since 1889. Does this holiday pattern sound familiar? You tell yourself, I'll get thoughtful gifts this season. Panic last minute and then buy a gift card? Yeah, this year I say skip the panic and give an aura frame. I'm not gonna lie, I'm currently noodling hard on my Secret Santa gift. Why oh why is it so difficult to find a personal gift for the people we love? Well, a digital picture frame that holds unlimited free photos and videos is a pro move. With an Aura frame, you can preload photos to it before it ships, add a personalized message, and then stay connected all year by sharing photos and videos effortlessly from your phone. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames, named #1 by Wirecutter, by using promo code CITYCAST at checkout. That's auraframes.com, promo code CITYCAST. This deal is exclusive to listeners and frames sell out fast, so order yours today to get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Hey, Bianca here. I love Madison, and I never feel more connected to it than when I'm out and about at an iconic Madison spot and see my fellow Madisonians just living their best lives. Whether it's while I'm strolling down State Street, dancing on the Monona Terrace rooftop, sitting lakeside and peering out over our gorgeous skyline and parks, I really cherish seeing other Madisonians right there with me, laughing and enjoying our beautiful city together. That feeling of deep connection with the city is why we created the CityCast Madison Neighbors program. Yes, CityCast Madison Neighbors is a way to support this podcast and keep it going, but it's also a way of getting more out of the city you love. When you're a CityCast Madison neighbor, you get an early look at events coming up around town. You get to shout out local nonprofits or businesses you love on the pod, and you get to join us for members-only experiences around the city, like touring the state capitol or grabbing happy hour. It's a deeper way of living in Madison and a way of making local your top priority. Join CityCast Madison Neighbors by going to membership.citycast.fm. That's membership.citycast.fm. And join now so you can get a CityCast Madison beanie. Warm that beautiful head of yours with our swag. For those of us who have lived in Madison for a minute, we know that there have been many attempts to bring passenger trains through the isthmus. Perhaps most notably in 2010, when then newly elected Governor Scott Walker turned away a more than $800 million federal award to build a high-speed rail line between Madison and Milwaukee. People are still sore about that. That was 15 years ago. But where do we stand now in terms of actually bringing a train to Madison? What's the hypothetical timeline?
So right now, WSDOT is underway with something that's called a corridor ID study. They actually have multiple of those across the state, and Madison is on one of those routes, which could ultimately become a Chicago, Milwaukee, Madison, Twin Cities route. So in that corridor ID process, they are currently in what's called stage 1, and then there are multiple other stages of that process, which then lead to what's called a service development plan, which is actually a concrete plan for what kind of service you would operate and what it would take to operate that service. Based on that plan, you would then need to do design and environmental clearance for the capital projects that are required to do that, which would include the station, but also would include the upgrades required along the line. You need to rebuild tracks, you need to improve safety at grade crossings, you need whatever set of projects you need, as well as multiple stations along the line. That would then lead into a final design, and that then would lead into construction. So if we're looking at a typical time frame, these kind of corridors can move into, we'd be looking at final design in, I don't know, maybe 2029 or so, and then service maybe 2032 or so. But that includes a lot of unknowns, and that is what would happen if both Amtrak and the state commit to moving forward with a plan.
A Madison to Milwaukee Amtrak route was one of 5 in Wisconsin awarded a $500,000 federal planning grant by the Biden administration back in 2023. So that's got to be something, right? Right.
No, there's been real planning work done at this point, and that stage 1 of the corridor idea is almost complete.
Since you've dropped this new plan for a location, you guys are narrowing in. Of course, Madison folks are responding, and Madison Reddit really sounded off when these location choices were announced. And an overwhelming sentiment was, I'll believe it when I see it. Are folks right to be skeptical?
There's a lot that needs to come together, and a lot of people who need to be on board to make this happen. And so nobody should be looking at this and saying, yay, we're about to get a train. They have to realize that there's a lot of steps between here and there.
Yeah, it just seems like trains are such an exciting thing, but because of this letdown, are you receiving kind of bitter feedback? At least I saw some on this Madison Reddit. Like, how would you characterize the general feedback so far? What's the scope like?
I mean, we're seeing a lot of people who are just saying we're excited about this. I think we're definitely seeing people who are skeptical. And as you can hear, I'm not disagreeing with them in that sense. I think we've definitely seen some discussion on sites. I see people keep bringing up the airport. I see people keep bringing up Oscar Mayer. I would say that some of the site discussion I've seen is exactly the analysis we've done. There's reasons we're not including those sites. And I think in some cases, people are overestimating how much existing infrastructure there is. In other cases, I think it's assuming travel demand that is not, I think, what the actual travel demand looks like. Like, I don't think people are going to be using Amtrak to go to the airport. And when people say that the airport has lots of parking available, I've talked to the airport director, and they are actually very concerned about their parking situation. So, but I love seeing that discussion on sort of, you can tell how much people care about this. One of my favorite things about doing transportation work is this is something that a lot of people really care about and a lot of people have thoughts about. And we've heard a lot of those thoughts all the way through the process.
Right. And you started out the conversation saying you have to think about who will be using the Amtrak. And, parking was an issue that I saw, some criticism of the Monona lakefront choice. Like, what about the parking? What do you say about the pushback for the parking situation downtown?
I think people are underestimating how much downtown parking we have. We have a city-run garage directly across the street from it. There are multiple other garages in the area. And we think that it will not be difficult at all to make the arrangements for parking. If you were to show up there today, you'd have plenty of parking options.
Okay, Christoph, but here's my experience going to the opera the other day.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to get a parking spot downtown on a Friday or Saturday night, and apparently there were 4 other shows. And I tell you, I was really feeling pressed about the amount of space. Maybe it was just because it was just the one by the Overture Center, but I guess I would like to push back a little bit because I've noticed more challenges with finding parking. Prove me wrong.
No, I think our stats will agree with you that around the Overture Center is actually, on weekends for special events, the parking demand is quite tight. I think as you get towards Monona Terrace on the other side of Capitol Square, you will not see that as strongly. So I think you're absolutely correct for that area. The other thing I'll also note there that is useful here is that the times when you would see the most people parking at Amtrak are probably not the same as the times that the special events peak. And one of the great things about downtown is the number of different kinds of uses that add up together there. And another thing is the ability to reserve parking spaces, which is definitely something we're talking about, could also be of help there. Like, I could see a future in which you basically pre-reserve your parking space a day in advance so you know the space is there for you when you need it.
Well, this is maybe not so surprising of a criticism that came in from former Republican Governor Scott Walker. He posted on Facebook calling the whole plan a, quote, dumb idea, and says he was right to squash the previous attempt to bring passenger trains to Madison. So, I mean, I guess my question is to you, why isn't it a dumb idea?
I think all you have to do is look at Milwaukee to Chicago. We have an incredibly successful Amtrak corridor in this state already, and those trains are full. You will sometimes find that you have trouble getting a ticket. And I don't see why traveling from Madison to Milwaukee or traveling from Madison to Chicago is any different than traveling from Milwaukee to Chicago. I think we've clearly seen that when you provide good rail service, the public wants to use it.
So what's next?
At this point, the state is continuing with what's called the corridor ID process, where they are studying multiple potential rail corridors in the state, including the one which would pass through Madison. So I think the city will continue to assist in whatever way it can. We'll continue to provide all the information we can. We'll continue to support that process. But ultimately, it is very much in the state's and Amtrak's hands moving forward.
Well, I know there is a series of like listening sessions and getting community feedback and input. Is that part of the process done at this point?
For now it is, but if this gets more real, there will be other processes at that point. So if the train is coming, there will be more public input on station design and on many other aspects of this.
And I know you said it's out of our hands, but what percentage real are we? How much of a real boy are we at this point? 40%?
I mean, I'm a planner, I'm an engineer. I'm like, if that were a technical question, I could give you the odds. But ultimately, this is a policy decision. This is a decision the state and Amtrak make about what's most important to them and where to put their funding. And I think you might need to talk to a political analyst to get a better read on that.
Sure. So, like, if there is something that might, gunk up the plan, it would be on the policy and sort of in the political realm. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, what we're seeing here is this is not the kind of project that we think has any sort of real major technical issues. The tracks exist. The number of trains through Madison today is pretty low. There's capacity on those tracks. We know where it can connect to the existing Amtrak route. Like this is, as passenger rail projects go, this is a relatively straightforward one.
Well, that's exciting. How can folks stay up to date with what's happening with Amtrak and I guess the state, the next steps that we're waiting for?
The city will obviously put information out as we have it, and the state has their webpage for their passenger rail program. And as studies move forward, I think there will be announcements of public meetings and other moments like that. So just follow the news. And the thing about trains is whenever something happens with rail, it will get covered. So I don't think this is going to sneak up on anybody.
Well, rail is not the only thing that you oversee. Christoph, you yourself are relatively new to the role of Madison's transportation director, so it's great to have you on the show. You stepped into the job back in July. When it comes to Madison's transportation systems, has anything surprised you so far? Anything you're seeing that's like exceedingly good or, well, bad? Or things you're keeping an eye out for?
I actually think that a lot of Madisonians underestimate how good the transportation network here is. When I look at our bike facilities, they're amazing. When I look at sidewalks, like we've definitely have gaps, but the percentage of our streets that actually have sidewalks and the quality of the work we're doing to continue to improve pedestrian safety and to create more connections is really great. Our bus network, if you compare it to other cities of a similar size, we have an amazing bus network and with a lot of frequent service. And Metro's done some really amazing work to make almost all of those stops accessible. I feel very lucky to come in to a city where a lot of good things are already happening and a city with a transportation network that for the most part works pretty well. Of course, we can talk about John Nolan Drive, and I know how frustrated everybody is right now, but ultimately we got to fix those bridges. We don't have a choice on that count.
I am so here for the fixes on John Nolan. I mean, it was like boom, ba boom, ba boom, driving on the road. Like, it's time.
Bridges collapsing into the lake is not an acceptable outcome, so we need to fix them. But it really is nice to go into a city where I think a lot of things are already working very well. The challenge is we're going to keep growing. And if we just keep the transportation network we have, it's not going to be good enough. So we need to keep thinking big and keep thinking about what the next projects are. BRT was a big visionary dream, and it is now what I ride to work every day. We can think of what the next big ideas are and figure out how to make those happen. And meanwhile, also get all the little things right, which I think is so important when we do this. We can think about the big things, but that little thing of, do I have accurate real-time information while I'm waiting for my bus? Is that intersection I'm walking my kids to school across safe? Is it easy to understand how to get where I'm going? Those kind of things are incredibly important. And one of the things I love about the city here is we have an incredibly talented team and a lot of really great in-house capability that we can actually focus on all of those details and get them right. And we have a public that cares enough to tell us what we can do better. and gives us a lot of really good information.
Christoph, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show and bring light to what's happening with Amtrak and the future of transportation in Madison. Appreciate you so much.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
That's Transportation Director Christoph Spieler. Thank you out there, all of you existing CityCast Madison neighbors. Y'all really make this show happen every day, and Madison is better because of it. Again, if you'd like to become a neighbor, now is the best time to do it. Perks include ad-free listening, invites to member-only events, a special members newsletter, and special to this campaign, a CityCast Madison beanie. Warm your head. Head to membership.citycast.fm to learn more. That's all for today here on CityCast Madison. I'm your host, Bianca Martin. If you enjoyed today's show, why not share this episode with someone who loves trains? We know y'all are out there. Alrighty, we'll be back tomorrow morning with more stories from around the city. Until then, take good care and thanks for listening.